What's up, everybody? It's Matt from Rocky's War Room, and tonight I have a special painting video for you of the new Virai Drone Scourge First Contact sample pack for the game Beyond the Gates of Antares by Warlord Games. We're going to be doing something a little unusual, a little out of the ordinary, it's kind of out of my wheelhouse, if you will. We're going to utilize our washes with this painting video, and we're going to utilize our dry brushing skills and lining skills. We're just going to be doing something a little bit different than I normally do as far as painting goes. So I start off with the black primer, and I'm not using an airbrush this time, even though I would recommend it, putting on a primer. I just didn't feel like getting the airbrush out, so I went ahead and just painted it on. It goes on really easily. It's the Vallejo Surface Primer, and I'm just going to coat everything in black up to this point. That it is a new mold. I do want to say that it is a new mold, so I would recommend you take some, even though it's not resin, usually I say this with resin, but I would recommend you kind of just give it a good, clean up with a toothbrush and some dish soap of any kind of soft soap before applying the black primer. And once you do that, just put it over the whole entire model, both models. I do them both in this video. You'll see mainly this one here being painted throughout the whole entire video, and then we'll see clips of the small one. I did things a little bit different, like I was saying, with this painting tutorial. You don't have to use these colors. You can use any colors that you want to use as far as what they are. I went a little bit darker than what is in the studio art. Studio art is a little bit brighter. It's a little bit more metal. Mine's a little less metal, a little bit more like bug looking. So, but I carried on. I primed both of them. There they are. They're both primed black, and they're still drying. Wait till they're completely dry before you move on to the next step. And our next step is taking our shining silver. It's an army painter color, war paints. I use a brighter silver, and I use a crappy dry brush, because what we're going to be doing is, we're going to be taking most of the paint off, not all of it. And we're going to do something I call overbrushing, which is not quite a dry brush, not quite painting it on, but we're heavily dry brushing over the black, over the entire thing. Now you can actually, if you wanted to, the parts that you're going to leave silver, like the arms and the gun on the front, right on his face there, you could actually leave that and just paint those in this overbrushing style. I put metal underneath my colors if they're going to be all metal. Sometimes it'll show through. I think it'll make it a little bit brighter, because we're going to be bringing the color down so drastically with washes over and over. I used the brightest silver I could find, which was this shining silver. So, and we're just overbrushing it. As you can see, I'm getting a lot of paint on there. It's not a dry brush. It's just a heavy, heavy dry brush. Maybe I should say that. So we'll go over the entire thing. You're not necessarily, you're kind of using the side of the brush when you do it, and leave the recesses dark. That's the whole point of overbrushing, is leaving your recesses pretty dark. So, and you get most of the paint off. I kind of use this poster board, the back of a poster board frame, and actually soaks the water out of the paint really well, as my palette. As you saw, you got a bunch of silver off to the right there. And I use cardboard when I dry brush. I feel like it gets a lot of the wetness off the paint instead of the towel soaking it all up. So. And I continue to overbrush over the whole entire thing for both this main miniature and the small one off to your right there. And we're going to see what it looks like when I'm done. So there you have it. They're all metal. And as you can see, there's little pits and spots where the black is still showing through. That's okay. Don't worry about that. Those are going to be our deep recesses. We're going to be painting over this sucker quite a bit. So our next step is we're going to, I wasn't going to include this in the video, but I did anyway, because I do this step to kind of pick out which parts I want to be darker. It's kind of an unnecessary step, but it allows you to kind of see where the recesses are. You don't really have to put this on very heavy. I'm just kind of seeing where the color variation. So when I go and paint the color that's going to be put on top of this color, as you'll see, which is a copper, I can see where, you know, I want the color variations to be. So when it's all silver, it's like, okay, I should paint here. Ooh, should I paint here? Well, if you apply this light Agrexer shade, which we'll be using later, to some of the parts, it breaks it up to where you can actually see where you're going to go with the copper. See where you want it. It kind of gives you an idea of where it's going to be darker. And then once it's dry, you can kind of look at it and go, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Those parts will be darker. It's an unnecessary step. Like I said, you do not have to do it. I just do it to, when I'm painting, to try to figure out where I want the color at. And if I'm putting it here, it's not going to mess with the green that I'm going to put on this model, and it's not going to mess with the silver or the copper that I'm going to be putting on this model. It's just kind of like a roadmap of where I'm going to paint. So rather than just taking it out and you're like, wait a minute, some of that's brown, I went ahead and included it in. You guys don't have to do this step. You can fast forward about 20-30 seconds or so to the very next step in this video, and you'd be just fine. I mean, like I said, I'd rather include it than not include it at all, and people are wondering, what did he do there? But this is how I'm kind of, with the wash, I'm kind of picking out where I want that copper to be. So I always approach it that way. When I'm doing something new, and I want to break up the colors and the patterns, I'll throw a, you know, darker wash of some kind on it before I paint over it. So as you can see there, I found where I wanted to go. Okay, I did it with both of them. As you can see, little guy, big guy, where I wanted to break everything up at. This is that step. Like I said, you can just bypass this step completely. You don't need to do it, but I figured I'd show you. So the next step to painting this is I took the Vallejo Model Color Copper, as you can see here, and everywhere I did put that Agrexer shade, I'll take a small brush and I will start painting on this copper color. Everything, as you can see, is coming out super bright, and this copper is a really bright metallic color. I do like it because it has hints of orange in it, and it also has hints of red in it. And it's a good combination because we're going to be going with green, and it's not quite red, not quite orange, so the colors will mesh well together. And this model, I mean, it's going to look a little silly at first, but once I bring in the washes and show you what I do with the washes throughout the rest of the model, you'll kind of see why I went with super bright colors, because we're going to be adding quite a bit of washes to this and blending with the washes together and stuff like that. And we're getting it on there. So here you go. Here's what I did. I followed my roadmap of the Agrexer shade there, and I painted all the spots that I picked out to break it up with the copper color. And as you can see, it's a real bright metal. So if you're adding a dark wash to it, it'll really bring it down quite a bit. So our next step, we're going to take the medium olive. This is the green I chose. I could have gone with a little bit darker, but I decided to go with bright because we're going to use in our washes again. This is medium olive is a bright color, as you can see, just like the copper. And everywhere you don't have the copper, you pick out everywhere that there's not copper, you pick out where you want the green parts, and remember that we're going to have a silver part too, which I save for the head, and I save for the claws, and a little bit of his underbelly. So the idea is I'm really trying. They look like a mechanical bug to me, some kind of bug. So I'm really going for that dark, blending bug colors and stuff like that. And I wanted to keep it green because I really do like that they're green and silver, and they just look great like that. So you do want to water down this paint, 50-50 mix, since we're using a brush, and you want to do 2 coats. As you can see, I've already there's some parts where I'll have to add another coat, like his tail there. But you want to do 2 smooth coats because you're dealing with metal, and obviously metal does not have brush strokes in it. And if you don't water down your paint enough, you will see those brush strokes in this metal, especially when you're using bright colors and stuff like that. You will notice it. So, and I got parts of the wing. I got his front, the front of him. We're going to be painting green. And then we're going to leave some metal parts alone. All right. There you go. That's what they look like. Like I said, it looks kind of funny. It's super bright. They look kind of cool. But we're going to start using our washes to blend things down, to really take down the color. And we're going to start with our green tone ink from Army Painter. Obviously, we're using this on the green parts. You don't want to use that on the copper. I mean, you could if you really want to. But we're going to take our green ink, and we're going to start at the tail. And this is just the first initial one, is just kind of darkening down that green. I'm really lobbing it on there, because we're going to be doing some edge highlighting later. It doesn't matter, how much you really put on in this step. It's still going to be a bright green, but we're going to be adding more washes on top of this one, and it's going to be darkened down significantly, because what we're going for is a metallic green. We're going for a metallic looking green, a dark green metal, I should say. And that's going to come with a series of washes on the model itself. And if you notice, I've got a rather large brush there. I'm using a larger brush. I'm being very careful not to hit the copper or the metal itself. It will happen sometimes. You can just touch it up and reapply your wash at this stage. I'm using a larger brush so I can hold more ink, hold more ink or wash on the brush itself. So when I'm putting it on, it's rolling down into the crevices of the green, because you want the crevices to be the darkest part. So this is just, like I said, our initial wash that we put on this little guy. Just spread it all over the green. So now that we got that finished, while that's drying, we can go over the copper with an Agrex Earthshade by Citadel. It's kind of like a reddish brown, and that's kind of what I wanted, is kind of like a dark reddish brown or orangish brown over the copper. Anyway, it's just an initial wash, just like our green. We're We're going to take it right out of the pot, and we're just going to spread it all over that copper so we can start bringing that color down to where we want it to make it look like it's, you know, insecty, an insect color. So just get a dab on your brush and try not to let it pool on this particular wash on the tops. And as you can see, it's applied. So while all that's drying, we can do our third step and put the dark tone wash over all the silver parts. And this one, don't worry about how much is on your brush. Just glob it on there. It's so bright that this dark wash will bring it down significantly. And if you noticed, I'm also kind of staying away from the edges because we're going to be doing some edge highlighting. And I want it to look like, you know, dark panels, dark metal panels. And I'm globbing it on there. You really don't have to be careful too much. Wherever it connects, wherever the metal parts connect to the other parts, if you get a little dark wash on, like say in the green or in the copper, that's no big deal. It's not going to ruin it, and you won't even really notice it. But for you sticklers out there, you can always go over the copper again or go over the green again, and then go over with a little bit of wash, and you'll be just fine. But I'm putting that black on there heavy and all over the metal, the silver part. And we're almost finished there. Just getting the underneath as best I can. And there you go. Now all we got to do is wait for this wash to dry completely before we move on to the next step. So this would be a good stopping point to work on the other one. And there you go. It looks pretty cool. You could leave it just like that and it'd probably be just fine. I really wanted to, but I decided against it. Instead, oh yes, that's right. We're moving on to another initial wash, or a second wash. It's going to darken it down. We're going to take a small brush. We're going to take a small brush and we're going to darken these panels down and the crevices just a little bit more. Same washes we've been using, except this time, if I'll get back on camera there, yep, there we go. So this time I'm kind of pulling it on the tops, staying away from the edges, just to darken down the panels and to bring the light to the edges of the actual copper itself. I will do this to the green as well. As you can see, I'm very carefully just dabbing it in these spots. I had to get more paint there. I'm just dabbling in these spots, and you can see how when I'm dabbing it, it's just kind of staying there and pooling there. And the edges are brighter. And I find that this works best with metal. It just looks good if the darker spots of the wash are in the center and not just the crevices. As you'll see later. But I'll go over everything with a spot pen wash like this, just to darken it down just a little bit more. Yeah. Kind of working on one side, then I go to the other side and work on it. Making sure I'm not missing anything. That way you won't miss anything. You just do one side, then do the other. So, all right. So now I finished that with the copper. So we're going to move on to the green. And we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to darken this green down even more. That's why I did such bright colors, because I knew I was going to be bringing this down to a very dark color, dark green from where it's at. You could start with a darker green. There's nothing wrong with that. just go easier on your washes. I didn't want to have to worry about it that much. I didn't want to be afraid of accidentally adding too much and then having to go over it again. I didn't want to have to do that. But here I'm spot or pin washing it just like I did with the copper part. And I don't do this with the black because the black is dark enough and you're seeing enough metal there, and it's darkened down more than enough with just one heavy black wash on the silver itself. All right. So, wrapping up the green. It's starting to look pretty cool, starting to look finished, as you can see. And I added to the base my gravel paint mix that I make myself. And you could actually leave it just the way it is right here, do nothing else to it, and they would look pretty cool. But I do more than that. I want to give them kind of a rough metal look. So like their paint's chipping or their metal's chipping, or as they're flying through the air, the metal is reflecting. So we're going to do some edge highlighting in, especially to the black. You want to do this to your metal. You want to edge highlight your metal. And I went back with our shining silver again. And this is perfect for the metal parts. And it's good for all the rest of it. But when you're putting it on, you're going to be like, wow, are you crazy? Because it's so bright and it's so shiny. But we'll fix that here after we're done lining the whole entire miniature itself with the shining silver. Makes a good highlight for, like I said, the regular straight metal, as you can see there. And you want to use the edge of your brush. It's really important when you're doing edge highlighting is you want to get just enough paint on your brush. You don't want to overdo it. You want to get just enough to line it like I'm doing right here. So we're doing some edge highlighting with a metal color. And like you can see here, it's like, oh my gosh, that's really super bright on the green. But don't worry about that. Keep going with it. Keep lining it if you want to. Like I said, you could leave this part out on your copper and your green part and look just fine. But we're going to edge highlight this whole thing. And then you're going to see something like this. So this half is dulled down. This half is all edge highlighted, just regular. So as you can see, it's dulled down on the other side. because I used our same two inks, our Agrex Earthshade and our green tone. And after I was finished edge highlighting, I went all over the copper parts again with a light wash of Agrex Earthshade, which will tone this metal down, this metal look, this shininess. It won't make it so, I guess, shining silver. It'll actually tone down that edge highlighting quite a bit. And this is, again, why I use such bright colors to start off with, because I knew I'd be doing this later on. And now it has a very earthy tone. It's really dark. It's got a bug look, but that edge highlighting I did with that shiny silver gives it its metal tone. To remind, so you'll see that that's metal. So, and as you can see, I'm just going over with a light wash of the green tone over the green, and it brings that reflectiveness of that silver down. It really dulls it. Doesn't make it so predominant, like it's taking your eye away from everything else. So, and I'll just go over the entire green part with the green tone and the copper part, which is now a dark metallic brown, and with the Agrex Earthshade. And as you can see, it's really come together. We're almost finished. And of course, let this dry completely before you move on doing anything else. So here's both of them. They have their edge highlighting and they're toned down. I did paint the lens on the little guy there. I used a blue scheme that I've used in the past in my other videos for the lenses, but it's really toned down with the washes that we used in the final step there. All right, there you have it. There's the completed product. They're all done. The only thing I got left to do is to paint the ring around the bottom of the base, and they'll be completely finished. In the finished photos at the end of this video, that'll be finished. The pictures that I take of it. Very cool looking, different looking miniatures for Beyond the Gates of Antares. They're pretty awesome. They look like little bugs. And as you can see there, we did a series of washes. We did some edge highlighting, and then we toned it back down with some more washes and stuff like that. And that way they look like reflective metal. As a matter of fact, it's kind of hard to keep them away from the shininess, because what I did was I put a polyurethane matte varnish over the top of them. I did that twice, and sometimes you put it on a little heavy. It has a sheen to it, semi-gloss, but that's okay because it makes them look metal. Pretty cool. I really like the way they turned out. They look like a bug. That's kind of what I was going for. So a bug in metal form. And we put some rocks and some moss down there at the bottom of their base. Here's the little miniature bug. And as you can still see that edge highlighting. It looks like it's worn and torn metal, like it's been through some battle, stuff like that. Very excited for these. Can't wait for these to come out in full force. See what they're going to be like. See where they go with this. But as far as that goes, this is a completed model. You could probably do this in a couple hours, depending on how quickly your wash dries. They're not hard to paint. They're really easy to paint, as you saw in the video. But I'm very excited for the new Virai. Virai is the way I've been pronouncing it. So, but the Virai. So there we go. Okay. So that's it. That's all I got for you guys. Thanks for watching this tutorial. I really appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed, please do. Please tell a friend. Leave me some comments. Tell me what you think of this.
For sure, I do want to say also there's some still shots at the end of this video. You guys can see some pictures of them without me moving them around. Also, you don't have to take it to this level. You don't have to take it this far. If you don't like the way the metal looks, the shining silver looks on it, you can actually use a gunmetal or something a little bit more toned down if you want a brighter green. It is up to the artist's discretion, of course. So last but not least, from me to you, ta-ta, and we'll catch you in the next video.